Howdy folks, Mr. Reed here and welcome to one more question. So I'm going to be doing a trinomial factoring question today and I'm basically just going to put it all together. So this is like the culmination of all of our factoring techniques that we've covered so far, kind of put into one thing. This is not going to be a special case, so there are some things that I might teach outside of this about perfect squares and difference of squares. But for the time being, this is kind of our normal plain trinomial factoring, but it's going to include a little kicker where we also are going to have to recognize a common factor first unless we want it to get out of control number-wise. So if you want to see how we would approach this thing by using common factoring and trinomial factoring all together at once, you're in the right place. So let's get to it. Okay, so first thing, as always, I'm going to take this thing and copy it down. So we got 18x squared minus 15x minus 12. So if I was following my normal trinomial factoring technique, I would take 18 and multiply it by 12. So that's 180 plus 36, I guess. So we would have 216. And so we would say, what number multiplies to give us negative 216 and adds to give us negative 15? Now, that would be okay. It's not quite as nice as if we were working with smaller numbers. So I'm not going to do that because the first thing I can ask myself is actually, what thing can divide into every piece here? So is there a common factor for all three terms? 18, 15, and 12. The answer is yes. There's a 3 that will go in, and I guess only a 3. So let's try that out. Factor a 3 out first. What's left is 6x squared minus 5x minus 4. Now, this little piece that's left is still, if we kind of cover up the 3 there, this is its own little trinomial question. So I'm going to just contain myself in the bracket, pay attention to the trinomial that's left, and ignore the 3 that's out in front for the time being. So now the question isn't, what was it, 216? It's 6 times 4, which is 24. That's a lot more manageable. So I think that's a good place to start, is by finding that common factor. So 6 times 4 is 24. It's negative because that's a negative 4 at the end. And we're going to add to give us negative 5, which is the middle coefficient. All right, so taking a look at that, 3 and 8 are 5 apart, and they multiply to give us 24, so I think that's what I'm going to use here. Negative for the larger number because I have a negative 5 as their sum. So negative 8 and 3 will multiply to give me negative 24, and they'll add to give me negative 5. So that's good. I found my two numbers. So now, as I said, I'm going to completely ignore the 3 that's out front, and we're going to just pretend that the only part of this question that's going on is the stuff that's in that first bracket. So I get 6x squared minus 8x plus 3x minus 4. So I just put my decomposition there, so I broke it up into 2 terms in the middle. And so now I'll look for a common factor amongst the first 2 pieces. So I have a 2 that will go into 6 and 8, and I will have an x that will go into x squared and x. So 2x. That leaves us with 3x and minus 4. Now, in the second part, we have 3 and 4, no common factor other than 1, and we have x and no x, so no common factor there either, which means that we can only really pull out a 1. Now, I pretty much never would put in a 1 when doing a multiplication. Sometimes I do when teaching people how to do this particular thing because of when you do the factoring out, I guess, to get your 2 parts to your answer, your 2 binomial factors, it isn't that uncommon to see people not realize that that's a 1 in front of that second piece, which is the 3x minus 4. They just kind of, for some reason, want to use a 0, even though a 0 multiply would make the whole thing go away. So I'll show you what I mean. So far, what we have is our 3x minus 4 as the common piece here. And I usually call it the leftovers, would be 2x, but also this plus 1. So it is important to recognize that it's a 1 there, even if you're not writing it down. So my final factored form would be 3 times, in brackets, 3x minus 4, in another brackets, times 2x plus 1. So we took out the common factor first, made things a lot more manageable, and so look for that common factor first, because actually you need to take that 3 out at some point, and taking it out at the end means that you did a whole lot more work with larger numbers in the middle. So our factors are 3, 3x minus 4, and 2x plus 1. So that's all there is to it. Look for that common factor first. Do it every time you factor trinomials, and then you'll make your life a lot easier if you do it up front. All right, so if that was helpful, like, subscribe, and as always, take care, folks.